If you have arrived at this video now on July 18th, understand one thing before any other word. This is no algorithmic accident. You did not land here because the platform decided. You landed here because for the last 3 days, something inside you has not stopped whispering. A silent restlessness that appears when you are standing in the shower, a strange pause before sleep, that feeling that your current life has ceased to fit you and you still cannot quite explain why. You opened your phone without knowing what you were looking for, and the algorithm merely followed orders from a frequency you were already emitting beforehand. You have felt in recent days that you are crossing an invisible threshold, that the ground is shifting beneath your feet even when the routine seems the same, that there is a thin, almost electric tension between who you are today and what you already sense you need to become. And that is exactly what this video is about. In the next few minutes, I will describe with surgical precision the 7 hidden signs that appear when your destiny is shifting, and why July 18th is one of the most important turning points that most people will pass through without noticing. Most will attribute all of this to fatigue, to work, to a bad night's sleep, to the weather, to age. They will erase the signal with coffee, with noise, with infinite scroll, and the window will close for these people silently, as all windows close when no one recognizes them in time. You are not these people. If you were, you would not have clicked. You would not have stayed this long. You would not have felt the small shiver at the base of your neck when I described what you have been feeling. You belong to the minority that carries the internal infrastructure necessary to use this window consciously. And it is for this minority that this video was built. There is a calling that always arrives before change. A calling that makes no noise, that has no clear shape, that comes neither as a voice nor as a vision. It comes as discomfort, as weariness with things that once gave you pleasure, as estrangement in the middle of conversations that used to seem normal, as a subtle allergy to the environment where you live, to the work you do, to the person you repeat being every day. Great life transformations never start from the outside. They start from within, in an underground tectonic movement, almost invisible to the naked eye. Long before a job changes, long before a relationship ends, long before you move to a new city or meet someone who changes the course of your story, something inside you already knew. It was already reorganizing in silence. It is as if the soul had access to the destiny calendar months in advance and began to prepare the ground by moving small pieces of your inner life before the outside world receives the update. You notice this when you start getting bored with what once defined you, when the songs you have listened to for years no longer make sense, when longtime friends start to seem strange, and conversations that were once easy gain an odd weight, when you look in the mirror and recognize the face but no longer fully recognize the person behind it. This is not depression. It is not a crisis. It is not frescura. It is the calling. It is the advance notice of destiny. And July 18th, within the hidden calendar of collective transitions, is one of those dates on which this calling becomes most audible to those who have a trained ear. Not because the sky will open, not because some cosmic event will save you, but because there is a specific frequency of mid-year turning, a point where the collective field slows down enough for internal warnings to finally be heard. And if you are here today, this warning has already started knocking on your door. The question is no longer whether it will arrive. The question is whether you will recognize it, because a portal is not an astronomical event. A portal is the turning point at which the cost of remaining trapped in your current life becomes greater than the terror of taking the next step. You take the step, and only then does the ground appear, never before. That is why most people never cross over. They keep waiting for the ground to appear first, and the ground never appears for those who wait. The ground only materializes for those who move. The first clear sign that your destiny is changing is the abrupt awakening of your intuition. I'm not talking about that vague instinct everyone has. I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about an internal communication system that suddenly comes off silent mode and starts vibrating day and night. You begin to know things without knowing how. You start looking at a person and immediately feeling that the relationship won't last another 3 months, even without any concrete proof. You start waking up at 3 in the morning with a name in your head, and the next day that name appears in a message, a phone call, a piece of news. You start having dreams with a sharpness that isn't normal. Dreams in which you talk to people who are already gone, dreams in which you see places you have never visited, dreams in which a sentence is spoken, and you wake up with that sentence etched in your mind as if it were an instruction. Intuition is not mysticism. It is the oldest language your nervous system knows, and it has always been there. What changes when your destiny is moving is the volume. It is as if someone inside you has turned up the signal because big decisions are about to be made, and the logical part of your brain alone won't be able to handle it. The soul knows this. The soul knows that the rational mind, trained to survive in normalcy, is terrible at navigating turning points. So it activates the second system. It turns on the old radio, and that radio starts broadcasting. You begin to feel things before they happen. You begin to be certain that you need to say no to something that, on the surface, seemed perfect. You begin to be certain that you need to say yes to something that, on the surface, seemed too risky. You begin to know. And that is where the test begins, because knowing is not enough. Many people know and do not act. Many people receive the crystal clear warning, feel every hair on their arm stand up, and the next day go back to ignoring their own body for the sake of routine. These people miss the portal, not because they weren't warned, but because they didn't trust the warning. And here is the point that must be made clear before anything else. What you do with your intuition in the coming days will determine the size of the turning point you are capable of sustaining. That is exactly why I prepared the Magia M28 Exercicios, also known as the 28 Chaves do Despertar. It is not a course, it is not a collection of motivational lectures. It is a practical 28-day journey, an entire lunar cycle, designed exactly for the moment you're in right now, the moment when the soul begins to speak and the mind still doesn't know how to respond. Each of the 28 keys is a concrete exercise made to transform restlessness into language, shadow into clarity, sign into decision, and awareness into practical direction. There is no pretty theory there. There is structure, the structure that separates those who only feel the portal from those who actually cross it. If you feel that the last few days have become strangely heavy, that your intuition is screaming, and you don't know where to start, the first pinned comment below this video is your starting point. Also, write the word atravessa in the comment if you recognize that this call has already begun within you. That comment is not for me. It is an energetic commitment to yourself, a public declaration that you will no longer silence the signal. Returning to the map of the 7 signs, the second and the third always go hand in hand, and most people misinterpret them as tragedy when they are, in fact, surgery. The second sign is the sudden end of cycles that seemed eternal. Friendships of 10, 15, 20 years that suddenly lose their appeal. Relationships that were lukewarm but comfortable, which start to turn sour for no apparent reason. Jobs you defended with conviction months ago, and that now, when you walk into the office, give you a physical sense of weight in your chest. It is not you becoming bitter. It is you changing frequency, and everything that vibrated on your old frequency starts to go out of tune. It's like a radio station going off the air. The music still plays, but with a static that wasn't there before, and that static is the warning. Some cycles need to close not because they failed, but because they reached completion. They served the version of you that existed until yesterday. They cannot serve the version of you that is already being born. The third sign attached to the second is the drifting away of people. And this is where it gets more painful, because it isn't just the people you want distance from. It is also people you loved deeply. Close friends who disappear without explanation. Family members who out of nowhere become distant. Groups where you used to feel at home, and that now seem like a foreign language. Many people panic in this phase. They think they did something wrong. They try to win people back, chase after them, explain themselves, apologize for things they didn't do. Do not do that. You are not being abandoned. You are being desimpregnado. The universe, or whatever you prefer to call this greater intelligence, is clearing your schedule so that the right people for the next phase have space to arrive. It is a cleansing of energetic contacts. If you do not let go, nothing can enter. If you try to hold on to everything, you clog the portal. There is an old saying that no one carries two full barrels at the same time. If you want to fill yourself with new wine, you must first empty the old wine. It is brutal, it is painful, and it is necessary. And here you need to stop romanticizing spirituality. No one is going to come down to console you. No one is going to appear in the middle of the night to tell you that everything will be all right. What will happen is this. You will realize with an uncomfortable coldness that these losses are not destroying you. They are unburdening you. You will cry, yes. You will feel longing. You will look at old photos and feel a tightness in your chest, but you will realize deep down that you wouldn't go back even if you could, because the you that would go back no longer exists. It has already died, and accepting this silent death is the second great test of the portal. The fourth and fifth signs begin to appear precisely when you are at the bottom of this emptying. They appear as synchronicities and hidden messages, and here, once again, beware of the romanticized interpretation. Synchronicity is not the universe caressing you. Synchronicity is the mathematics of the collective unconscious placing directly in front of you the exact information you need to make the next decision. You start seeing the same number repeated on clocks, signs, receipts. You start hearing the same theme through different paths, a conversation on the bus, a video that appears without you searching for it, a sentence in a book you open at random. You start meeting people in unlikely places, people from the past who disappear for years and reappear exactly in the week you most needed that mirror. This is not chance. This is your reality being reprogrammed in real time, and you starting to gain access to the source code. The hidden messages come in the form of details that most ignore. A bird that lands on your window 3 days in a row. A dream that repeats itself with small variations. A strange sensation when passing by a specific street. An itch, a tingling, a headache that always appears before you make an important decision. The body speaks, the environment speaks, time speaks, and those who listen gain an advantage over those who do not. That is why July 18th is treated in several silent traditions as a date of accelerated synchronicities. Not because the day itself has any power, embedded magic, but because it is a midpoint in the year where the collective unconscious opens a window of contrast. It is a day when you look back at the first 6 months of the year and look forward to the next 6, and your body does an automatic assessment. And in that assessment, signs that had been broadcast for weeks gain volume, gain clarity, gain urgency. And if you are paying attention now, comment below what was the last sign you saw in the last 3 days. It could be a number, a person, a dream, a phrase, a coincidence that gave you chills. Write it in the comments. Reading the accounts of other people going through the same window is part of the portal itself. You will realize that you are not alone, and the relief of recognizing this is in itself a remedy. And if you are not yet feeling all this with clarity, it is because the noise of the routine is still louder than the voice of the sign. That is why I created Magia em 28 Exercicios. The 28 keys are the concrete method to calibrate your internal radar and transform loose synchronicity into practical direction. The first pinned comment below has the first step. The window does not stay open. Whoever enters, enters now. The sixth sign is the quietest and, for that very reason, the most decisive. It is deep internal transformation, and this is where most videos about destiny fail, because they treat this transformation as if it were a sudden enlightenment, a brilliant insight, a day when you wake up different. That is not how it works. True internal transformation happens almost invisibly, in tiny details that you only notice when you look back. You start having less patience for superficial conversations. You start preferring silence over noise. You start looking at people who used to intimidate you and realizing that they no longer have the same weight in your field. You start having less anger toward those who hurt you, not because you forgave them, but because you genuinely stopped caring. You start changing what you eat, what you watch, what you consume, without effort, without a diet, without a promise. It is as if your body has developed a natural allergy to what was harming you, and a spontaneous hunger for what is good for you. You start preferring books, you start preferring walks, You start preferring 2 or 3 hour conversations with a single person over an entire night in a crowded place. This is not aging. This is waking up. There is a huge difference between the two things, and the world does everything to make you confuse them. Aging is getting tired. Waking up is getting selective. Aging is losing energy. Waking up is redistributing. Aging is resignation. Waking up is purification. And when internal transformation is truly underway, you start to see yourself as a stranger, but a stranger you respect. You start to look at the person you were 2 years ago and feel a strange tenderness, almost like a mother looking at a child who has already grown up. You start to understand why you did everything you did without torturing yourself with guilt, but also without repeating the same mistake. You start to change your values. And here is the key that almost no one teaches. A person's true destiny does not change when circumstances change. True destiny changes when values change. You can change cities, jobs, partners, your body, and continue being the same person everywhere, attracting the same type of situation, repeating the same pattern. That is not destiny changing. That is scenery changing. Destiny, the real one, is the alteration of the internal structure that produces different decisions. And different decisions over time produce different lives. It is simple, and it is relentless. And it is here, in the middle of this silent transformation, that most people almost give up. Because the process is slow, it is without an audience, it is without applause. No one notices from the outside that you are rebuilding yourself on the inside. And in that silence, the old tries to return. Old habits knock on the door. Old people, they send a message. The old fear appears disguised as common sense, and if you don't have a firm structure, you retreat. You go back to the previous version, now with a bitter taste, knowing you have betrayed something. And that is worse than never having started at all. The 7th sign, the one that appears at the end of the process, is the clear, physical, almost visceral sensation that something grand is on its way. And here I must be precise, because this sensation is often confused with anxiety. The difference is subtle but absolute. Anxiety shrinks you. This sensation expands you. Anxiety makes you want to run away. This sensation makes you want to prepare. Anxiety smells like fear. This sensation smells like the dampness before a great rain, the smell of a locker room before an important game, the smell of an airport before the trip that will change everything. It is a different energy. You wake up with it. You go to sleep with it. You are washing dishes and it is there. You are in the middle of a meeting and it is there. It is as if you had received a silent notification in your field, a message without text that simply says, "Prepare yourself." And the body understands. The body begins to accumulate energy. You start to have more desire to act, more courage to say things that have been stuck in your throat for years, more willingness to start projects that had been stalled, more clarity about where you no longer want to be. It is as if a wind is coming, and you already feel the leaves moving before you see the entire tree bend. This is the final sign. This is the warning that the portal is not a distant promise, but an imminent event. And here appears the real test of who you are. Because it is one thing to feel that something grand is coming. It is quite another, very different, to have the internal structure to receive it. The greatest spiritual tragedy is not failing to be called. It is being called, feeling the call, recognizing the call, and arriving unprepared. Arriving at the door of the new phase with a tired body, a confused mind, relationships still hanging in the past, finances in disarray, boundaries never installed, the inner voice never translated into clear words. That is the tragedy. And it is a silent tragedy because no one sees it. No one knows that you were called and could not cross over. No one knows about the encounter you didn't have, the work you didn't accept, the version of you that remained on the other side of the portal, waiting for someone who never arrived. And that is precisely what Magia M28 Exercicios is for. The 28 keys are not to make you feel more beautiful. They are to make you arrive prepared. Over the course of 28 days, an exact lunar cycle, you go through practical exercises for recognizing the soul's signals, integrating the shadow that still sabotages you, translating restlessness into language, and converting consciousness into concrete decision. It is internal engineering. It is the bridge that most do not build and therefore do not cross. If you are feeling right now in the midst of these words that this call is serious, the first pinned comment below is where the bridge begins. The July 18th window is short. It does not wait. Either you enter with structure or you enter too late. And it is here that July 18th gains its true meaning. Not as a mystical market date, not as an exotic astrological event, but as an exact symbolic marker in the middle of the year in which those who are awakening have the last clear chance to reorganize the second half of the calendar before it closes. July 18th is, within the silent symbolism of collective transitions, a day of reckoning. It is the date on which the year takes an almost invisible pause and asks, in what direction do you want to use the next few months? It is a day when the energy quiets down enough for uncomfortable questions to surface, without being muffled by the noisy routine. Who am I now? What am I tolerating that I should no longer be tolerating? What decision have I been putting off for months? What truth have I been swallowing in the name of peace? Who do I need to stop? To be until December to reach the next year as the next version? These questions are not new, they were there weeks ago, but July 18th is the day they gain a voice. And the difference between those who cross the second half of the year transformed and those who reach December exactly the same as today lies in the answer given to these questions now, right now, and not in some imaginary future where everything will be easier. It won't be easier. It never is. Life doesn't get easier to live. You are the one who gets stronger to live it. And this strength is not acquired by waiting. It is built, it is trained, it is installed through a sequence of small, sustained, silent decisions that no one applauds. It is the habit of getting up earlier, even when no one is watching. It is the choice not to respond to the message that throws you off balance. It is the gesture of closing the door that no one else has the courage to close. It is the invisible practice of being with yourself, in silence, listening to what the soul has to say without anyone's interference. These practices are the raw material of destiny, not intention, not reading tarot, not the birth chart, not the moon phase. Concrete repeated practices integrated into the body, that is what changes someone's timeline. And if you have understood this by this point in the video, you have already understood more than 90% of the people who claim to be interested in spirituality, because most keep waiting for the cosmos to act. You, if you are still here, already know that the cosmos only responds to movement. And here is the last point before we close, the point that needs to be tattooed on your field by tomorrow morning. The last attempt that most will ignore is the Magia M28 Exercicius. I did not build this program to sell illusions. I built it to serve as the infrastructure for the exact moment you are going through. 28 exercises, 1 per day, each functioning as a key that unlocks a specific part of your consciousness that needs to be open for the second half of the year to be different. It is not optional for those who feel what you are feeling. It is the bridge between the sign you received and the life you have not yet built. The first pinned comment below has everything. Do not scroll to the next video before clicking. If you leave it for later, later becomes next week becomes next month, and next month you are back at the same point, feeling the same calling without having crossed over. That is the difference between those who change and those who only want to change. Decide now. The path of souls who are awakening is not decorated with bright signs. It is a narrow, silent path made of small decisions that no one on the outside notices. It is the path of those who stopped waiting for life to become different on its own and started to be different before life responded. Because this is the law that no one teaches in school, no one puts on a billboard, no one repeats enough. The change of destiny never starts from the outside. Never. It starts on a dawn when you decide not to send that message again. It starts on a morning when you wake up 20 minutes earlier and simply breathe. Without a phone, without a plan, without noise. It starts at a lunch when you say no to food that has been bad for you for years. It starts on a day when you look in the mirror and stop negotiating with the person who appears there. These are the real keys. They are not grand rituals, they are grand decisions disguised as small gestures. And it is the sum of them, over 28 days, a full lunar cycle that redraws someone's destiny. Those who understand this stop waiting for change and start producing change. They cease being victims of the calendar and start being the authors of the calendar. They stop feeling the sign and going off to cry in corners and start feeling the sign and acting with surgical precision. This is the difference between a soul that is just waking up and a soul that has already awakened. The one that wakes up is still, asks what to do. The one who has already awakened is doing it. And if you have reached this point in the video, you no longer belong to the first group. You can no longer pretend that you didn't see, that you didn't feel, that you didn't understand. The 7 signs are described. The July 18th window is open while you breathe. Your next decision will set the tone for the second half of your year, and this second half will set the tone for your entire next cycle. It is not dramatic, it is mathematical. And before you close this page, understand one last thing. This video was only the preparation. It described the map of the signs, but there is a deeper revelation about exactly what will happen in the coming weeks, which are the 3 internal movements you need to make immediately after July 18th, so as not to miss the wave of the turning point, and how to recognize in your day-to-day life whether you have already crossed over or are still waiting on the threshold. This revelation is in the next video that appears now on your screen. Its first 60 seconds will change your reading of all the other signs that will come until December. If this channel is not yet part of your sequence, subscribe before leaving. Each video here is a coordinate within a larger map, a map that extends throughout the second half of the year, and that only makes sense in order. To miss a video is to lose a piece of the context, and whoever loses context loses direction. Click on the video that appears now. Do not put it off until later. The portal has already begun to move, and what you do in the next few minutes is part of the portal itself. Your next timeline is starting exactly now.